It's 1:40 in the morning. You're floating in that soft gray space before deep sleep pulls you under. Then a voice cuts through the dark. So we're really just not going to talk about this? You are fully, sickeningly awake. Most people write these late-night arguments off as accidents of timing. They blame the stress of the day. They assume their partner is a night owl, or they convince themselves that they are uniquely bad at handling conflict when they are tired. Take the case of a 34-year-old fourth-grade teacher we'll call Dana. For 4 years of her marriage, every serious conversation, the massive accusations, the perceived humiliations, only ever started after midnight. She spent years believing she was a volatile, irrational person who lacked emotional control. Choosing this specific hour serves a tactical purpose. He waits for the exhaustion to act as a weapon, turning your own biology against you so that the topic of the fight becomes irrelevant compared to the need for sleep. Fast forward 5 hours. You drag yourself out of bed, hollowed out. There is a heavy dread sitting right on your chest. You reach over to apologize for a fight you can barely piece together in your head. Then you walk into the kitchen, and there he is, cheerful, whistling, asking about eggs. He has no red eyes, no hangover of grief. He slept perfectly fine. That mismatch is the confession, a conversation that devastates one person and leaves the other humming over the stove was never a mutual struggle. It was one person performing a task on another, then clocking out to sleep the sleep of a person who finished their work. To understand why this tactic works, we have to look at the brain's hardware. Deep inside sits the amygdala. Think of this structure as a fast-acting smoke alarm. Its entire job is to scan for threats and scream "danger" before you even have time to process what is happening. Now, look up here. This is the prefrontal cortex. It is the slower, rational regulator that sits behind your forehead. In a rested state, the prefrontal cortex keeps a firm hand on the smoke alarm. It talks the amygdala down. This connection is what allows you to hear an accusation and respond with logic instead of a total emotional meltdown. Take that rest away, and the system collapses. Researchers at Berkeley monitored subjects in scanners while exposing them to emotional conflict. They observed that exhaustion effectively severs the wire between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. The calming hand goes quiet. This chart shows the result of that severed link. The sleep-deprived amygdala fires 60% harder than a rested baseline. The brain reverts to a more primitive state, all gas pedal, no brakes. A single sleepless night ruins your ability to separate raw feeling from objective fact. When you cave during a 2 a.m. fight, you are not displaying a lack of willpower. You are experiencing an involuntary neurological state, which raises the real question. If your partner knows that daylight is available, why do the hardest conversations only ever arrive in the dead of night? Because at noon, you win. When you are rested, your memory holds steady. You recall the timeline. You address a harsh comment without your voice shaking. The fully rested version of you is a bad target, so the conflict waits for the dark. And notice the shape of these fights. A normal argument eventually narrows toward a resolution. The midnight fight remains circular. Every time you get close to finishing, a brand new grievance from 3 years ago suddenly appears to keep you awake. This disruption does lasting damage. Sleep is the time your brain files the day into long-term memory. Break the sleep and you break the file system. You wake up with a vacuum of facts, and the instigator is standing right there, ready to fill that void with their own version of who screamed and who apologized. The circular logic and ancient grievances are purely decorative. They serve to keep the engine of the fight running until the resulting fatigue finally breaks your resolve. The product of these late-night arguments is the deliberate manufacturing of your own self-doubt. Advocates and clinicians who study toxic relationship dynamics categorize this behavior precisely. Sleep disruption is a documented tactic of coercive control. It thrives because it has built-in plausible deniability. The controller gets to claim they are a devoted partner who just wants to communicate, while framing you as the avoidant one for needing to sleep. This is why traditional advice fails. You are told to set a boundary or use logic to walk away. But willpower and reasoning live in the prefrontal cortex, the exact structure the tactic was designed to disable.
You cannot use logic to defeat a manipulation that works by taking your logical center offline. Folding isn't a character flaw, it is the design working exactly as intended. There is only one effective move. You decline the fight. You say, if this matters, it will still matter at 10 tomorrow morning, and I will be there for it, fully awake. Then you endure the uncomfortable silence. Be ready for the reaction. The volume will climb. You will face a guilt trip, an accusation that you don't care, or a sudden manufactured crisis that absolutely must be solved right now. This surge in hostility reveals the true intent. A partner focused on solving a problem will meet you at 10 a.m. with relief. Someone focused on control will only ever fight on ground where your brain cannot defend itself.